All right, up, everybody? Hope you're doing well today. It is a beautiful and sunny Monday morning in beautiful and sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. And today we have an amazing topic and an amazing guest, an amazing topic and an amazing guest. So I'm super excited to get him introduced and get right into what we're talking about today. So today we're going to be talking about how to lose fat and gain muscle, how to lose fat and gain muscle. And there's so much information about this everywhere. And there's a lot of false information. There's a lot of mixed information. There's a lot of mixed studies on this as well. So today I'm going to bring in a really special guest who has worked with a lot of clients, including a lot of our clients. And his percentage of getting people results is out of control. It's really, really high. And it's because he follows not only the next play methodology, but he also does an amazing job of understanding people, their bodies, and what's best for them. And so I'm going to have him break down today the topic of how to lose fat and gain muscle. Do you do it at the same time? Do you do it at separate times? Do you do one first? There's so much information, and I want to talk about what's going to get you results. What are you going to use to succeed and get your results? So excited to announce Mr. Zach Carlin. He has an insane amount of experience. He's a professional athlete. He's our VP of performance. So I'm going to jump right in by just asking Zach the simplest question of all time, and that's, dude, tell me a little bit about your background and just your background when it comes to fitness and nutrition.
Absolutely, and thanks for having me here. This is really cool. I'm excited to
Yeah.
talk about this. My background kind of started. I've been a personal trainer since I was 18. I had a personal trainer since I was 13. I guess my dad kind of forced me to get one. So I've been in the industry for quite a while. And actually, my first set of nutrition specific clients was actually fighters, with a weight class specific sport. So it was really stressful, and it forced me to learn a lot. It forced me to reach out and reach out to a lot of mentors and gain a lot of mentors, which I was very lucky to find some very, very great ones over my time. And then from there, I moved back to Canada, where I got into kind of the CrossFit world. And again, met some amazing coaches of my own, mentors that pushed me to educate myself. And then my first certifications in specific nutrition was through the Poliquin Institute, which I got their general nutrition certification, their sports nutrition certification, and their digestive rehab certification. So, and then from there, I worked with just a lot of the general population, trying to or they were aspiring athletes, whatever it was. And again, have a lot of great mentors in the time. And then from there, it just kind of blossomed. And since then, I've worked with a little bit over 10,000 clients and got them to where they want to be. And again, I've just taken all that experience into what we got going on now.
Awesome. Dude, that's awesome. So you started out working with professional fighters, and that's because you were a professional fighter yourself.
I was, and I just seemed to care a little bit more about my nutrition. They kind of saw me like bringing my food. I had my little scale and was weighing it and that kind of stuff. And this was 11 years ago, a long time ago. And so that they saw me doing that, they're like, "Hey, can you like help me do that?" Yeah, and then that just kind of started just helping them, for free, kind of on the side, and then eventually I kind of turned it into help me pay my dues.
Yeah. So why did you care about nutrition when nobody, like, you were young, nobody else really cared? Why did you care?
Oh, uh, at the time it was because I came off. First of all, I came off being an addict, so I had a lot of issues in my body at the time anyway, so I had to care about it. But also, I wanted to move down a weight class, so I really paid attention to it. I really did a lot of my studying, education. At the time, YouTube wasn't a big thing, so again, hiring a coach would help and that kind of stuff. So again, I just kind of had to care about it, and then I started kind of falling in love with it.
And then you started what?
Then I just started falling in love with it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So that's awesome. So you went from, you were this fighter, nobody else cared about their nutrition, but you did. And then people started asking you like, "Hey dude, like, obviously you're doing well. Your body looked really good." And people were like, "Hey, can you help me?" And then from there, you started noticing like, "Hey, I can really help people with their nutrition." What happened after that?
well, I started realizing I don't just want to work with fighters. And so then I got back again when I moved back from Vegas at the time back to Canada. Um, again, I met some really great mentors, and they really kind of paved the way with how I could help people and what people really need help with, and then kind of push them in the right direction as far as education and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So you figured out quickly that like this was a big passion of yours, and so then you went down the road of education and making sure that like you were applying what you were learning with your current clients. And so how did that lead you here? How did you become a part of Relentless Warrior Fit and now Relentless University and now all the way up to overseeing all of the fulfillment for all our clients?
Oh man, that's a journey. So we ended up moving back here from Canada. Ended up working, helping a company. They were an online company, and I ended up jumping on with them and helping them kind of form their online nutrition programming and certifications and that kind of stuff. So I really got to see kind of what the industry looks like in a bigger scale. Where that's when I got to help with. I got to help thousands of clients, and that's when I started coaching coaches and really kind of honing my skills. And then, what I saw with Relentless Warrior and now Relentless University was that it kind of blended everything that I had learned and everything that kind of encompassed my passion into one. Right. So it wasn't just giving people, here's a workout plan, here's a nutrition plan, good luck. Right. It encompassed how to change their life and how they look at nutrition, how they look at their fitness, how they look at their health, how they look at their lives, and really all encompassing improving that.
Right. So it's not just here's a meal plan and a workout program. Wish you all the best. It's how do we actually understand this person's mentality, their habits, their skills level, and then creating a process, everything from their schedule, their daily schedule to the to what they are doing in the gym, what equipment do they have access to, what is their what do they have time to do, is it meal prepping, is it meal plan, is it meal prep service, like just really honing in and making sure that person gets from point A to point B. And that's kind of what you're saying is instead of just throwing something at them, it's more about it's more about everything and
Mm-hmm.
understanding the person and then holding them accountable to it. Yeah.
No, 100%. It's you can get somebody from point A to point, especially in a shorter amount of time, right? Their goals and that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing is getting them from point A to point B, and then point B being their life from now on, as
Being
opposed
their
to most
what?
people being their life from now on, right? So it's
Yeah.
long term. A lot of people go from point A to point B, and then they don't have their coach anymore, or something. It could be fairly an insignificant event happens and throws them off track. All of a sudden they're back at A, right? So at that point, what happens between A and B is extremely important to keep them, and also to help them drive further.
Beautiful. So the topic, it's so here's the deal. Here's the question. Like, and I could see as like somebody who's I see all the operations, right? I see everything in every corner. And here's whether it's what they're typing in their questions, comments, wherever it is, it's they want to lose fat and gain muscle. Like this is what the majority of people want to do, right? So what's the process? Like you hear so many things, right? Can you do it at the same time? You can't do it at the same time. Not everybody can do it. Like what is your process when somebody says, okay, here's where I'm at. I'm self-disciplined. I'm motivated. I want to get this done. I don't want to waste my time. I'm busy. I'm successful with my career. And I need to but I got to get my body back. Like I'm tired of going to the pool and with my family, and then I have to take off my shirt and I look like shit. Like what do I need to do to lose fat and get like back? I want to get back to where I'm just freaking a badass when I take my shirt off. I'm 50, I'm anywhere from 30 to 60 years old. How do I do that? How do I get there? What's the process?
And that is probably the most common, at least surface level right away when they come in, is I want to lose fat, gain muscle. They might say it different, but that's what they mean, right?
Yeah. Right.
And you have to look at somebody who's again, we have a lot of they're a former athlete, or they have been in really good shape, in their 20s or early 30s, and now, their 50s, and they're successful with their career, families, and all that kind of stuff. And now they want to get back to there. But what's the biggest thing that's changed between when they're in their 20s, early 30s, and now, right? It's mostly the stress, how much stress they put on themselves. So now that they have, they're trying to support a family, that they have these successful careers, or they have to pay the bills and all this kind of stuff, right? It's usually stress, right? And your ability to deal with the stress. And it's never, I know this isn't a fancy answer, right? Everybody wants that fancy answer. Like, what can I do now? Like, what can I get to right now? Like, what pill do I have to buy? Like, you go to the store, you see the fancy stuff behind the counter, you just want to buy that, and I'll be good. Unfortunately, that's just not it, right? Especially if people come in, if they specifically want to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, right? Which usually, if they're just starting, will happen. But the best thing you can do is control your stress, right? And more specifically, again, it's not fancy, so it's hard to convince people of that, to just be like, okay, control your stress.
Yeah.
Right? But if you really get into what being stressed, especially being stressed consistently over time, actually does, it's a pretty big eye opener, right? So if you're like, to get into it a little bit, like if you're somebody who's stressed constantly, whether it's at home, at work, road rage, whatever it is, right? A lot of people know, but the stress hormone gets released. It's cortisol, right? Cortisol gets released. Cortisol is a natural thing. Our body needs it, right? But when we're stressed, it can be up to 10 times more. There can be 10 times more of it in our body, or being secreted. And again, it's a good thing. It helps control our sleep-wake cycle, our blood pressure. It helps release carbs and fat when we get for energy. But again, if it's heightened all the time, you're always like this. It just elevates everything a little bit too much. So let's think of it this way: that mechanism itself was initially designed for if we were like getting away from lion and like hunting and running through the jungle, or defending ourselves and our family. That's what it was for. That's what that mechanism was for. But nowadays, what are we doing when we're stressed? I kind of already talked about it. We're just sitting at our desk, mad about some coworker that said something, or we're driving home, sitting in our car, mad because somebody's driving 60 into 65. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what we're stressed about. So what that does is, when our cortisol is elevated, is again, it releases from our tissue carbs, fat, and carbohydrates. It takes it all from our muscles and puts it into our bloodstream, so that we can use it for energy to get away from the lion, right? Or whatever we're doing, right? But we're not doing that. We're sitting in our fucking car. You know what I mean? We're sitting at home, right? So our body doesn't use it anymore. So then what your body needs to do to counteract that is it releases insulin. And insulin groups all that together and then stores it as visceral fat. Most of the time it's visceral fat. So in other words, it's the pouch around your stomach, right? That's where most people, when they're stressed, or if they don't deal with their stress, they're going to hold it. They get like that. See a lot of guys and girls, they get that stubborn pouch around their belly button. Right? That's what that is. That's stress. Right? It gets stored there. Another thing that it does, when you're probably guilty of this. I know I am. When people listen to this, I've definitely have done this before. They've had a long, stressful day or long, stressful week, and they're driving home at 7:30 at night. What's the first thing they do? What's the first thing that they look at if they're hungry? What's the first thing they do? Fast food.
Yeah.
First thing is fast food, right?
Chips.
Exactly. All that stuff. And the reason we look for that is because stress actually, like the elevated cortisol levels, it actually has a very similar effect on us as alcohol. Right? Our decision-making skills become very poor. Well, think of it: if you're stressed, people who are stressed sitting in traffic, they're more likely to get out. The more stressed you are, that person's more likely to get out and try to start a fight or an argument or something like that. Poor decision-making skills, as opposed to when you're relaxed, right? But again, that kind of goes the same thing with food. You're out having some drinks. Usually, your food choices aren't that great, right? Stress does that same thing, right? You have poor decision-making skills. You look for a quick dopamine fix, which is the happy hormone, right? Through bad food. Usually it's sugar, because we're all addicted to sugar these days. And it also inhibits, our ability, portion control, right? Obviously, poor decision on food. It inhibits your stomach's ability to send a signal to your brain to tell you that you're full. So you're going to eat way more than usual. And then you couple that on top of, what I had gone over earlier, where it really, cortisol releases all that stuff down into your bloodstream, insulin then stores it as fat, right? So again, that's just like kind of the tip of an iceberg, right? So if you're taking away, if you're stressed, basically, to kind of put this all into a kind of more simple way, If you're stressed, your body takes everything away from your muscles, away from your brain, puts it in your bloodstream so you can use it as energy, but we don't use it. So then we store it as fat, right? And then we get more stressed because we're fat. We get more stressed because we're not getting
So
the
it's like a
results.
terrible cycle.
It's a terrible cycle. So if you could be on the best workout plan, the best meal plan, and you could be following it, the 80% rule, you could be following it. But if you're stressed all the time, you're just hitting a wall constantly, constantly hitting the wall. You might see, again, if you're just starting out, you might see some results. You're gonna hit that plateau. You're gonna hit that wall pretty quick, right? And it's all just learning to control, learning to overcome stress and avoid stress, and learning to deal with it.
Okay, so you're saying so when someone says, "Hey, I want to lose fat and gain muscle," the first thing is to figure out, like, just first of all, is it coming, like, well, if they're stressful, we can say like that's a big contributor to the problem, right?
100%, but it's not just that, it's finding out where that stress is coming from. Doing that by
Gotcha.
looking at, how are they spending their day? What are their priorities? Looking at their daily schedule, having, again, even you just give people a schedule, tell them to fill it out. A lot of times they'll be like, holy shit, why am I spending so much time doing this? Right? Like they start to look at that stuff and you start to see where their stressors come from. And you can start to build habits around avoiding that stress, but not just avoiding it, but also learning how to deal with it.
Yeah, totally. Like having a schedule and seeing it ahead of time, like days before, and knowing what you can and can't accomplish in a day. Like I could probably say there's a massive majority of people that have no idea what they can accomplish in a day because they don't schedule it beforehand.
Well, they have no
Um,
idea and they feel overwhelmed all the time, which is stressful.
yeah. Yeah, overwhelm is a very stressful thing. Okay, so let's talk through the process then. So if someone comes to you, so step number one for you is you have a scheduling system that's part of our next play methodology that you use with people to get their schedule, lay it out, and then figure out like what do you do after that?
Yeah, so they come in, we kind of figure out what they've been doing, because everybody, that's the first thing you should do if you're trying to make a change, is find out what you're doing now, right? So whether it's with your schedule, how you're spending the time in your day, how you're utilizing the time in your day, what your priorities are in your time in your day, also how you've been eating, because again, a lot of times it's the same thing as looking in the mirror. You pass the mirror after you get out of the shower and you're like, God damn, I have some work to do, right? A lot of times people see, what they've been intaking as far as nutrition for a few days, they're like, God damn, right? So from there, we kind of we kind of prioritize what we need to work on first, right? Because if you prioritize everything, again, you get back to that overwhelming, and then that's stressful, and then you're not getting results, and then that's more stressful. It's just that cycle. So you gotta prioritize, right? You gotta make those small incremental changes, right? If you, again,
Cool.
if you try to
So
change it,
oh, sorry. So schedule first, then you diagnose the schedule and figure out what are the improvements and changes that need to be made. So if I'm looking at my schedule, I diagnose and I say, hey, here's the areas that like I'm having bad habits, and here's how I'm going to change those bad habits. And those bad habits are start around things that are caused by stress.
100%, 100%, or things that don't allow you to relieve the stress or don't allow you to overcome the stress. So a lot of
Mm,
times, if for most people, it's bedtime routines, right? They're in front of screens, especially people with stressful jobs, and they're working long hours and that kind of stuff. Usually they're in front of their screen up until they go to bed, right? So they're constantly stimulated and they're going to bed stressed, right? So you're not going to sleep very well, right? And
yeah.
sleep is huge at overcoming stress, huge at relieving stress and the effects of stress. And sleep is huge when it comes to gaining muscle and losing fat, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of it, again, this is kind of speaking just to the majority, is looking at how you're recovering from the stress of your day, right? So looking at what you're doing before bed and the hours leading up before bed. Um, and then from there, it's kind of looking at how you're prioritizing yourself in your day. So when you wake up, a lot of times people, they wake up, they're on their phone, or they wake up and they just have a cup of coffee, then they're off to work, right? They don't give themselves time or the ability to get ready for the stress of the day, right? So and that could be something like making sure that your schedule's in order, right? Because if your schedule's in order, this stuff's going to get done. It's on my schedule. Don't worry about it because I'm going to do it, right? Or you can do that before bed, whatever their routine is. And then again at night, their bedtime routine is just setting them up to recover from the stress from the day. And those are, again, this is speaking to the majority. That's most of the time things that we focus on first.
Gotcha. Okay. So this seems much deeper than just a simple solution to lose fat and gain muscle. Obviously, like it's a process, right? Like, and that's what I'm kind of getting from you. So
Yeah.
so so they get through this process. Now what about like, first of all, can somebody do that? Can somebody lose fat and gain muscle at the same time?
Absolutely, you can. It's again, especially if you're just starting out, you're going to do that, right? If you make these small changes, you start exercising a little bit, start looking at what you're doing. Again, even if it's not huge monumental changes, it's going to happen, right? When you're starting out. Now, when you're a little bit more experienced and you've been doing it for a while, that's when it gets a little bit more tricky. That's when it gets a little bit tougher. Um, it just depends what your specific goals are. If your goals are to just lose fat and gain muscle, most of the time you're not going to gain a whole lot of muscle, but you're going to lose a lot of fat. Right? So it
Why
can
is
be done.
that?
Why can you lose a lot of fat? Why
What?
can't it?
Oh, yeah. Why, if most people, why do they lose fat, more fat than gain muscle?
Well, because most of the time when they're starting an exercise routine and a nutrition plan, they're in a calorie deficit, right? So if you're in a calorie deficit, the goal is to kind of lose fat, right? But because you're in a deficit, you're not going to gain as much muscle, right? So the goal usually, especially when we're starting out at that time, is to increase your metabolism, get used to eating a little bit cleaner, and yeah, if you're because you're in that deficit, you're going to lose some fat, but again, because of that deficit itself, you're not going to gain a ton of muscle. Now, if you're to eat in a caloric surplus, right, you might not lose as much fat, but you'll gain muscle a little bit fast.
Right, right. So you can do both, but it's like you're gonna teeter one way or the other. There's
Yeah,
no way that you're just gonna like lose a massive amount of fat and gain like a huge amount of muscle at the same time. You can do a little or one or the other, right?
absolutely. And it all varies by degree. Like if you're just somebody who has a 9 to 5 job, and you just want to look good by the pool, right? You have to assess, what their goals are. Their goals are just to be healthier and probably to just lose some fat. So then obviously your goal isn't to have them deadlift 600 pounds and gain a whole bunch of muscle. So you would dial them back, you'll gain a little bit of muscle, but your goal is to lose fat. Now, if you're somebody who's wants to deadlift 600 pounds or be stronger, or maybe you're somebody who's underweight right now, then obviously, yeah, you're going to gain a caloric surplus. You might put on a little bit of fat or stay the same, but you'll gain a little bit more muscle. You just have to look at what your goals are. Like, really look at what your goals are, because a lot of times people come into it like looking at Chris Hemsworth's Thor and like, yeah, I want to be like that. It's like, no, okay. Maybe in time, but again, there's certain things that you have to develop.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that definitely makes sense. So if somebody's like, hey, I wanna look like, excuse me. Excuse me. They want to look like a savage at the pool. They just want to be a badass. They want to have bricks for, they want to have abs, but they also, they want to lose fat. Would you say that the first thing is let's strip the fat off them and then put on the muscle? How would you approach that?
Well, it depends where they're at now, right? If they're already fairly lean, then it'd have to be in stages. Like if that's their goal, then they have to be dedicated to that goal. Because from the sounds what you just described, it's like they're almost wanting to get on stage, right? You want to be the guy that turns heads, and all the guys are asking you what you're doing and what you're taking and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
they
If you
they
want, if
like
you want to be that guy, then be prepared for a long haul, right? You're gonna have to put on muscle, right? Put on muscle and fat, right? You're gonna have to get big. I mean, you have to do that to protect your joints and make sure that you're prepared to lose the fat. Because again, when you start getting into a caloric deficit, your joints are also at a little bit more of a disadvantage and more likely to get hurt. So you have to set yourself up for success. There's layers to it, right? It's a very complicated question. So again, if somebody comes to me, they look like, let's say they look like they're a little bit lighter, very lean, right? Then the goal for you would be, like, you're going to be eating in a surplus. You're going to be putting on muscle. You're also going to put on a little bit of fat. Say goodbye to maybe the two of your six pack for a little bit, and then we'll dial you back down. But realistically, that's how you have to do it. You have to be prepared for a long haul. You have to be prepared for the lifestyle, and that's why it's so important to create that lifestyle first, or else when you get into that long game, you're just not going to be prepared. You're going to quit.
so I want to talk to about both sides. So let's talk about the leaner side. Like let's say you're already lean or you're underweight and you want to put on muscle and then lose fat again. You want to get lean again, but you need to put on muscle. Do I need to, like, I have to be okay with, like, hey, I'm not gonna have a six pack for the next 3 months. Like I need to be okay with the fact that I'm going to be eating a lot more. And like, I'm going to have to deal with that. Like, I'm going to put on fat.
If that's your end goal, that's what you have to keep your mind on, right? Yeah, we would have to feed you. You have to find out what your what you burn in a day for calories, and then steadily increase that, right? As far as how much we're feeding you, and then yeah, like you're gonna have to be okay with going through that cycle of maybe not having a six pack for a little while, and then we'll dial you back down.
So we'll do that in the winter time.
Yeah, wintertime usually that's the time to do it.
Okay, perfect. And so for somebody who wants to lose fat, like they're just way overweight, they've got, a beer belly, and they want to get it down, but they also want to, put on some size. Their first step would be like, hey, let's get the fat off them first, or would you say let's build their muscle up first?
Somebody like that, it would just be general physical preparedness. It's just get them, because ideally if they got there for a reason, probably because there's, again, going back to stress, alleviating that, and then looking at kind of what their goals are, because again, if they're already big but they want to also be stronger, like you kind of have to give one way or the other. You're going to be in a little bit of a caloric deficit, right? And then also, again, this is one of those things where it completely depends. Has this guy been working out for 10 years, or is he brand new? Right? If he's brand new,
So
he's going
so
to do
so
both.
here's a scenario. Someone who they used to be fit a long time ago. They were an athlete. They're in their, but now they're probably in their mid 50s. They've completely let it go. They're way overweight. And but they want to get they want to get back ripped again. Like they'd like to see themselves with a six pack again. They'd like to see themselves with the confidence that they once had, the power, the respect. They want to get back to that. They're just, they're winning the game like business wise, but they want to get back to that. So what would you suggest for them? Like, they haven't worked out, and or excuse me, they are working out, but they're just not getting results. Like they work out even sometimes 3-4 days a week. They, they'll jump on Pelotons and F45 and Orange Theory. So they do work out and they're committed, and they're self-disciplined, they're motivated, but they just don't get results. And so like, what would you suggest for them? Would you suggest, hey, let's figure out a plan for you to lose fat first? Or would you say, hey, let's put muscle on first? Like what approach would you take? And their end result is they want to get back to just lean, six pack, look good when they look in the mirror.
So the first thing with them, I mean, again, I'm not talking about stress because that would be the first thing we do. But aside from that,
Yeah.
would
Take
be
that. We did all that.
so the first thing would be we get them to lose fat. We would need them to be healthy. We need to make sure their joints are healthy. We need to make sure that their cardiovascular system is healthy. They're not carrying a bunch of weight around their midsection. So the first thing you would do is the goal would be to lose fat to a certain point, and then we start building the muscle back up, because muscle does burn fat at rest. The more muscle you have, the more fat you will burn at rest. So there will be a bit of both, but the first thing is to get them healthy. So find out what their body needs as far as their daily energy expenditure, being just a little bit below that as far as their caloric intake is concerned, making sure they're getting enough protein for sure to keep that muscle on, the muscle that they do have, keep that on. And then again, get them healthy. Just get them healthy first. So if they're at, let's say, for instance, if they're at 35% body fat, we want to get them to around 20, right? 20 is usually a pretty good mark for 50 to 60-year-old men, 20 to 22. And then from there, we start to kind of reevaluate and start putting on muscle. Because now they're ready, now they're prepared. Because if they got to that point, then they're ready for a much more strict regimen as far as putting on muscle and starting eating a little bit more clean. When I say eating more, it's eating more clean. That's very difficult to do.
Gotcha. Okay. That definitely makes sense. Like that is like, and they have to focus on that. Like sometimes I know, what people will do is they'll do workout programs that are meant to build muscle, but what they're trying to do is lose fat. And so they're contradicting because they're trying to do it at the same time. Right. And so that's not going to work. You have to choose which one you're going to go and go all in at that and measure along the way until you get to a certain point, then make the adjustment because you have to switch the way that you're eating, the type of workout you're doing. Like it's not the same thing. You can't. And what you see a lot of people do, right, is they'll eat to gain muscle, or they'll eat to lose fat, but work out to put on muscle. And it's like you're
So then
contradicting yourself.
you're just hitting the wall at that point.
Yeah, you're never gonna get
You're not eating
past them.
enough. Yeah, you're just
Right.
yeah.
Cool. So I appreciate you sharing the different scenarios and how one would get there. Because I mean that's the name of the game. It's like if you're in one place, you're gonna do one first. If you're in another place, you're gonna do another first. And so the answer is it depends, right? It just depends on where you are and what your goal is. What's the end result? And so I think, Zach, more than anybody, people don't know what their end result they want is. And so
it changes all the time. It changes.
Yeah, it changes, which is fine. But if you don't know what it is that you want, you're just going to keep contradicting. You're going to keep buying Pelotons and trying different things, and you don't know what you want, right? And if you do know what you want, then it could be that you're had failed so many times in the past that now you feel unworthy. And so you're always focusing on your past failures. And then anytime you get close, you sabotage your future success, right? That's what we talk about on this podcast day in and day out. So we're not going to get into that on this one, but understanding what it is, which route you're going to go really depends on where you're at and where you want to go. Right. Right, Zach? Like it just really depends.
If anybody gives you any other answer other than it depends, they're full of shit. They're lying.
Right. Because you can't, like, there's no way. Like, you have to know, so like you said, this is a difficult question. You have to know so many different factors about someone to even decide which route you're going to go. And like you said, you can do a little bit, like, hey, I want to lose a little bit of fat and gain muscle at the same time. Or I want to gain a little bit of muscle and lose a lot of fat at the same time. Yes. But you're not going to do extremes of both. You're not going to lose tons of fat and gain tons of muscle at the same time. It's just not going to happen. So it is one or the other, and it depends. So, Zach, that you really did a great job of answering this question, and I hope it provided a lot of people value. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you'd want to share on this topic?
Just, if somebody listening to this is in that situation, where they've tried a lot of things before, they're just really unsure of what to do now, is to just slow down. Just slow down and take a look at what you've been doing and what you really want. Because a lot of times, like you brought up, the F45 and the Orange Theory and the Peloton and all that kind of stuff a lot. A lot of times people do that stuff is because they're panicking, right? So it's like a panic. They're like, they pass themselves in the mirror, or somebody says something, or they feel a certain way. They're like, shit, I got to do something. And then they do the first thing, that pops up in their ad list on Google or something like that, as opposed to just like calming down, right? And really looking at what they want and where they are right now. And taking note of that, because again, knowing where you are and what you've tried before is going to be huge in helping you kind of looking forward into what you can do to avoid those things.
Amazing, dude. So true. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing this super valuable information. I know a lot of people are take away from it. Zach is our VP of performance and oversees all of our fulfillment. He knows what he's talking about. You can look at all of the before and afters. He's changing people's lives top to bottom. So not just in fitness, but in all areas of their life, and just improving the overall there's their overall life and what the end result is that they want. People say, I want to lose weight. But yeah, they want to lose weight to get to an end result. What is that end result for you? And so I almost challenge you to figure that out and know what that is. And a lot of times it comes back to freedom and respect and power and significance and, whatever yours is, legacy, like finding yours and understanding that is really, really important. So thank you, Zach, for being here and sharing and answering this awesome question. And I'll see everybody on the next episode.
Absolutely.